Welcome to Cozy Sleep Haven. Wind down, cuddle up, and let's get cozy. Tonight's episode invites you to join Grace, the gentle guide behind Havenport's beloved meditation studio, as she leads you through a magical holiday journey filled with warmth and wonder. We'll begin in Grace's peaceful studio, where soft candlelight flickers and the scent of pine fills the air. Her soothing voice will guide you through a calming meditation, gently setting the tone for a journey of rest and enchantment. Then we'll step aboard the enchanted Christmas train, a marvel adorned with twinkling lights that sparkle like stars. Through frosted windows, snowy landscapes stretch endlessly, blanketed in a tranquil hush. Inside, the train is cozy and inviting, with the aroma of hot cocoa mingling with the sound of crackling fires. Each carriage holds its own story of connection, nostalgia, and the simple magic of the season. Here at Cozy Sleep Haven, we celebrate these cherished moments, the quiet beauty of snowfall, the comforting glow of holiday lights, and the small, tender joys that help us drift peacefully into dreams. Tonight's story weaves together these timeless treasures into a heartwarming tale that feels like a warm hug for your spirit. We hope you'll return for more dreamy adventures and heartwarming stories from Havenport. For now, let's join Grace on this enchanting journey into stillness and holiday cheer. Close your eyes if you haven't already, and let yourself settle into this cozy moment. Take a deep breath in, feeling your chest rise as you inhale the calm of this space. And now, slowly exhale, letting the air flow out like a gentle sigh, carrying away any tension or worry from your day. Imagine yourself standing on the snowy platform of Havenport's train station. The world around you is quiet and still, blanketed in a soft layer of freshly fallen snow. Feel the faint crunch beneath your boots as you shift your weight. The cold air brushes your cheeks, but it's the kind of cold that feels refreshing, invigorating. Above, the sky is a deep indigo, with hints of stars peeking through. In the distance you hear it, the low, steady whistle of a train. It's not loud or jarring. Instead, it's a welcoming sound, warm and full, like the voice of an old friend. The rhythm of its wheels on the tracks grows closer, the gentle hum filling the air as the train comes into view. This is no ordinary train. It's the Christmas train. Its exterior glows softly, as though lit from within, golden light spilling out through its frosted windows. The sides of the train sparkle with twinkling snowflake patterns that catch the light, making it seem as though the train itself is made of magic. As the train slows to a stop, you notice every detail. Steam rises from beneath it, curling into the cold air. A conductor steps out, his coat dusted with snow, and he gives you a warm smile, his eyes twinkling beneath the brim of his cap. He gestures toward the open door, inviting you to step inside. As you cross the threshold, you're immediately greeted by warmth. The air inside the train is cozy, filled with the faint scent of cinnamon, pine, and something sweet. Maybe peppermint cocoa. The soft hum of Christmas music plays in the background, mingling with the steady rhythm of the train's engine. The walls are adorned with garlands of evergreen and tiny glowing lights, while plush red and green seats line the car. Find your seat by the window, where a small lantern glows softly on the sill. You settle in, feeling the plush cushion beneath you and the gentle warmth of the train car. The window beside you is slightly frosted at the edges, but you can still see out into the snowy world beyond. The train begins to move, its wheels gliding smoothly along the tracks. The gentle sway of the car and the soft vibrations beneath your feet feel comforting, grounding. Outside, the snow-covered countryside stretches into the distance, dotted with twinkling lights from far-off homes and the occasional silhouette of tall, frosted trees. Breathe deeply, letting the rhythm of the train carry you. With each inhale, feel the magic of the season fill your heart. With each exhale, let yourself sink deeper into this moment, letting the steady motion of the train and the peace of the snowy night bring you into stillness. Hold on to this calm as we step fully into the story of the Christmas train, a magical journey through Havenport and beyond. The story begins on a quiet, snowy evening in Havenport. The small town is alive with the gentle magic of Christmastime. Strings of golden lights are draped along the eaves of buildings, their warm glow reflecting off the freshly fallen snow. Wreaths adorned with red ribbons and pine cones hang on every door, while the soft hum of carolers' voices drifts through the air. At the edge of the town, the train station stands as a beacon of warmth and excitement. Its wooden beams and old-fashioned lanterns give it a timeless charm. And tonight, it is bustling with anticipation. Families bundled in cozy scarves and mittens gather on the platform, their faces flushed with the cold, but lit with excitement. Children clutch their parents' hands, bouncing on their toes as they wait for the arrival of something extraordinary. The air is filled with a quiet hum of voices, the shuffling of boots on the snowy platform, and the faint jingling of sleigh bells in the distance. Then, as the town clock strikes the hour, a low, melodic whistle echoes through the air. Conversations pause, and all eyes turn toward the horizon. There it is, the Christmas train. In the distance, the faint glow of golden light grows brighter, shimmering through the swirling snowflakes. The sound of its wheels on the tracks becomes steady and rhythmic, like the heartbeat of the season itself. As it draws closer, the train seems almost too magical to be real. Its sleek cars gleam with holiday cheer, adorned with twinkling snowflake patterns that seem to sparkle with their own light. When the train finally pulls into the station, its whistle sounds again, deep and resonant, as if to announce its arrival with all the grandeur of a holiday symphony. Steam hisses gently from beneath the train, curling into the cold night air and creating an ethereal mist that mingles with the falling snow. The entire station seems to glow, the train's golden lights reflecting off the frosted windows and the snow-dusted platform. The conductor steps off first, a figure straight out of a holiday card, His long coat is trimmed with velvet, and his cap sits neatly atop his head. He carries a lantern that glows softly, casting a warm light onto his kindly face. His smile is wide, his eyes twinkling with the kind of joy that can only come from a deep love of Christmas. "Welcome aboard," he calls, his voice rich and cheerful, carrying easily over the quiet of the snowy evening. The Christmas train is ready to take you on a journey of magic and wonder. Step aboard, my friends, and let the season carry you away. Grace is among the crowd, her breath visible in the chilly air as she steps forward. Her gaze lingers on the train, taking in every detail: the garlands of evergreen draped along its sides, the tiny lights flickering like stars, and the festive wreaths adorning each door. The train feels alive, humming with warmth and possibility. She climbs the steps, her hand brushing the cold metal of the railing, and as she steps inside, she is greeted by a wave of cozy warmth and holiday cheer. The door closes behind her with a gentle hiss, and the magic of the Christmas train envelops her completely. The moment Grace stepped inside, she felt as though she had entered another world. The air was filled with the soft, inviting scent of cinnamon, nutmeg, and pine, mingled with the faint sweetness of peppermint. A cozy warmth immediately enveloped her, chasing away the chill from the snowy evening outside. The interior of the Christmas train was nothing short of magical. Garlands of evergreen were draped along the walls, their dark green leaves adorned with twinkling fairy lights and small red berries. Tiny lanterns hung from hooks overhead, their golden glow creating an intimate, almost dreamlike atmosphere. The seats were upholstered in rich, festive colors, deep reds and forest greens, plush and inviting, with embroidered snowflake patterns stitched into the fabric. Grace paused for a moment, taking it all in. The train car was bustling with passengers, each one settling into their own cozy spot. A young boy sat cross-legged on his seat, excitedly flipping through the pages of a storybook, while an older couple sipped from steaming mugs, their faces glowing with contentment. Laughter and the quiet murmur of conversation filled the air, blending harmoniously with the faint strains of holiday music playing in the background. She moved further into the car, her footsteps muffled by a thick, patterned rug that ran the length of the aisle. Frosted windows lined the walls, their edges adorned with delicate snowflake etchings, and beyond them, the snow-covered town of Havenport sparkled like something out of a storybook. A cheerful attendant approached, dressed in a neatly pressed uniform with festive accents, a golden trim on the cuffs, and a sprig of holly pinned to the lapel. "Welcome aboard, miss," he said with a warm smile, tipping his cap. "May I show you to your seat?" Grace nodded, returning the smile. "That would be wonderful. Thank you." He led her to a window seat in the center of the car, perfectly positioned to take in the view. The chair was impossibly plush, with a soft blanket draped over the armrest. On the small table beside it sat a lantern, glowing softly, and a tiny vase holding a single sprig of mistletoe. "Make yourself comfortable," the attendant said, his voice filled with genuine warmth. "We'll be departing shortly. If you need anything at all, don't hesitate to ask." Grace thanked him and settled into her seat, the cushions cradling her as though they were made for her. She ran her fingers over the blanket, its texture soft and luxurious, and pulled it over her lap. Outside, the snowy platform of Havenport was still bustling with activity as the last of the passengers boarded. The train whistle sounded again, a deep, melodic note that seemed to reverberate through the car, filling it with anticipation. As the train began to glide forward, Grace felt a subtle shift beneath her feet, the gentle sway of motion that only a train can provide. She leaned back in her seat, letting the rhythm of the wheels on the tracks and the festive cheer of the car settle her into a sense of peaceful wonder. She couldn't wait to explore more of the Christmas train, but for now, she simply gazed out the window, watching as the glowing lights of Havenport faded into the snowy distance, replaced by the serene beauty of the countryside blanketed in white. As the train gathered speed, the rhythmic click-clack of the wheels on the tracks became a soothing soundtrack, blending seamlessly with the soft strains of holiday music playing in the background. Grace gazed out the window, her breath catching at the sight of the snowy countryside unfolding before her. Havenport's glowing lights gradually receded, replaced by a serene expanse of frost-covered fields and towering evergreen trees dusted with fresh snow. The sky outside was a deep violet, with faint streaks of gold and pink lingering on the horizon. Snowflakes drifted lazily through the air, their delicate patterns illuminated by the train's golden glow. In the distance, a frozen river snaked through the landscape, its surface shimmering like glass under the faint light of the stars. Grace pulled the soft blanket tighter around her, letting its warmth sink into her as she watched the scenery pass by. Each detail seemed to hold a kind of stillness that felt magical, almost sacred. She spotted a small farmhouse nestled among the trees, its windows glowing warmly against the snowy backdrop. Smoke curled lazily from the chimney, rising into the crisp night air, and for a moment, Grace imagined the cozy scene inside. A family gathered by the fire, sharing stories and laughter. The train's gentle rocking added to the sense of comfort, its motion a constant reminder of the journey itself, a passage not just through the snowy landscape, but through a moment in time where peace and wonder could be felt so deeply. A few seats away, a group of children pressed their noses to the windows, their giggles filling the air as they pointed out reindeer-shaped shadows in the snow. Their excitement was infectious, and Grace couldn't help but smile. There was something about the unfiltered joy of children that made the magic of Christmastime feel even more real. The conductor strolled through the aisle, his lantern casting a warm, flickering glow. He paused by Grace's seat, his twinkling eyes meeting hers. "It's quite the view, isn't it?" he said, his voice rich and warm. Grace nodded, her smile soft. "It's beautiful, almost like a painting come to life." The conductor chuckled, the sound deep and resonant. "That's the magic of the Christmas train," he said. "It takes us through the places we know, but it shows them to us as if we're seeing them for the very first time. It's the way the season reminds us to look closer, to find the beauty in the simple things." With a small tip of his cap, he moved on, his presence as comforting as the train's steady hum. Grace turned her attention back to the window, her thoughts drifting as the countryside stretched out before her. The train entered a dense forest, the trees tall and silent, their branches heavy with snow. The moonlight filtered through, casting faint shadows that danced across the glistening white ground. Grace felt as though she had been transported to another world, one where time slowed and the smallest details seemed to hold endless wonder. The Christmas train moved onward, carrying Grace and its passengers deeper into this winter wonderland, a journey that felt as timeless and magical as the season itself. As the train glided deeper into the winter countryside, Grace found herself sinking further into the cozy rhythm of the journey. The steady click-clack of the wheels and the faint hum of holiday music created a lullaby-like quality that seemed to cradle her thoughts. She turned her gaze back to the frosted window, watching as the snow-covered world outside blurred gently with the train's motion. The sight stirred a wave of nostalgia within her, a feeling so vivid it was almost tangible. She thought back to her childhood, to snowy Christmases spent at her grandparents' home. Their house had always been filled with the comforting sense of pine and baking bread, the air alive with the warmth of family and laughter. Grace could almost hear the sound of her grandfather's deep chuckle as he handed out candy canes from his sweater pocket, or her grandmother's soft humming as she decorated the tree with delicate glass ornaments. Her mind wandered to Christmas mornings, the excitement of waking up early to find presents tucked neatly beneath the tree. There had been something magical about those moments, a kind of unspoken promise that the world was full of wonder and surprises waiting to be discovered. Grace smiled to herself, feeling the same warmth now that she had felt then, a quiet joy that made her heart feel light. Outside, the train passed by another small farmhouse, its roof coated in snow so thick it looked like whipped cream on a gingerbread house. Grace let her thoughts linger there, imagining the lives of the people inside. Were they huddled by a crackling fire, sipping mugs of hot cocoa as they watched the snow fall? Maybe they were stringing popcorn garlands for their Christmas tree, or reading stories aloud to their children. The idea made her chest ache softly, not with sadness, but with a bittersweet sense of longing. She realized how much the holiday season was tied to connection, to the small, simple moments shared with loved ones. It wasn't about the gifts or the decorations, though those were lovely too. It was the way Christmas seemed to draw people closer, creating a kind of collective warmth that was felt even by strangers. Grace's thoughts shifted to the history of trains and their role in Christmas traditions. She remembered reading about the holiday mail trains of the early 1900s, which carried countless letters and packages to families across the country. There was something so beautiful about the idea of a train connecting people, delivering not just gifts, but the love and care that came with them. She imagined the hustle and bustle of a mail car, the workers sorting through festive parcels as the train rushed toward its destination. It occurred to her that, in a way, this Christmas train was doing something similar, not carrying mail, but carrying magic. It was bringing its passengers into a space where they could slow down, reflect, and reconnect with the wonder of the season. She leaned back in her seat, letting these thoughts settle as the train pressed on through the snow-covered forest. Outside, the trees began to thin, and the horizon opened into a vast, sparkling field, its surface glowing faintly under the starlit sky. Grace sighed contentedly, pulling the soft blanket closer around her as the memories and reflections swirled together like snowflakes in a gentle wind. The gentle sway of the train seemed to beckon Grace to explore, And as she stood, she noticed the faint, comforting aroma of something sweet. Chocolate, perhaps, with a hint of peppermint. She followed the scent through the train car, the soft carpeting muffling her steps, until she reached the dining car. The moment she opened the door, a wave of warmth and festivity enveloped her. The dining car was a masterpiece of holiday cheer, with its golden lights casting a soft glow over the space. Evergreen garlands adorned the walls, intertwined with twinkling fairy lights and tiny red bows. Candles flickered gently on every table, their flames reflecting in the polished wood of the surfaces. The ceiling was decorated with delicate paper snowflakes that swayed ever so slightly with the movement of the train. Passengers sat at the tables, their faces rosy from the warmth of the car and their own merriment. Some were chatting over steaming cups of hot cocoa, their laughter blending with the faint strains of a soft jazz rendition of "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas." Others sat quietly, gazing out the frosted windows at the snowy landscape as they sipped their drinks, their expression serene. Grace found an empty table near one of the large windows and slid into the cushioned bench, immediately feeling at home in the cozy atmosphere. A server appeared almost instantly, a young woman dressed in a crisp white shirt and a festive red apron adorned with a sprig of holly. "Welcome to the dining car," the server said with a cheerful smile. "Can I tempt you with some hot cocoa? It's our special blend tonight. Rich chocolate, a hint of peppermint, and topped with whipped cream and crushed candy canes." Grace's smile widened. "That sounds absolutely perfect. Yes, please." The server disappeared toward the kitchen, leaving Grace to soak in her surroundings. The dining car's decor reminded her of the Christmas parties her grandmother used to host, where every detail seemed chosen to create an atmosphere of warmth and joy. She noticed the other passengers enjoying treats like warm gingerbread cookies and buttery scones, their plates surrounded by tiny sprigs of rosemary and powdered sugar that looked like freshly fallen snow. The server returned with a large, steaming mug, placing it carefully on the table. Grace inhaled deeply, the rich aroma of the cocoa filling her senses. The drink was topped with a cloud of whipped cream, dotted with candy cane crumbles that sparkled faintly under the light. A tiny cinnamon stick poked out from the side, adding to the festive presentation. "Enjoy," the server said with a wink before bustling off to assist another table. Grace took a sip, the warmth of the cocoa spreading through her like a hug. The flavors were perfect, the chocolate rich and smooth, the peppermint subtle but refreshing, and the whipped cream adding just the right amount of sweetness. She sighed contentedly, gazing out at the snowy countryside as the train continued its journey. The dining car felt like a tiny haven of holiday cheer, and Grace was more than happy to linger, savoring every cozy detail of the moment. As Grace sipped her hot cocoa, she let the flavors linger, each sip warming her from the inside out. The mug felt comfortably heavy in her hands, radiating heat that seeped through her fingers, a gentle contrast to the chill of the snowy evening outside. She gazed out the window, where the snowy landscape unfurled like a storybook illustration, illuminated by the faint glow of the train's lanterns. The motion of the train and the steady rhythm of its wheels felt hypnotic, grounding her in the cozy moment. The dining car hummed with the quiet sounds of holiday cheer, the murmur of conversation, the clink of porcelain cups on saucers, and the occasional burst of soft laughter from a nearby table. Grace's attention drifted to the passengers around her, each absorbed in their own pockets of Christmas joy. At the table beside her, a young couple leaned close, their heads nearly touching as they shared a plate of warm gingerbread cookies. The woman broke off a piece, laughing softly as she held it up for her partner to taste. Across the aisle, a group of children sat with their parents, their eyes wide with delight as they dug into plates of sugar cookies shaped like snowflakes and Christmas trees, their edges dusted with sparkling sugar. The trained server passed by Grace's table, carrying a tray laden with more steaming mugs of cocoa and what looked like miniature fruit cakes, each wrapped in shiny gold paper. Grace caught the faint scent of brandy and spices as the server moved past, the aroma blending seamlessly with the scents of peppermint and evergreen that filled the air. "Would you like anything else to go with your cocoa?" the server asked, pausing with a friendly smile. Grace glanced at the menu propped on her table, its edges decorated with tiny holly leaves. "I think I'll try one of those scones I saw earlier," she said, her voice soft with the calm of the moment. "Excellent choice," the server said with a nod. "I'll bring one right out." While she waited, Grace allowed her thoughts to wander. There was something magical about the simple act of sharing a meal or drink during the holidays. It wasn't just about the food itself, though that was delightful. It was about the way it brought people together, creating tiny moments of connection and joy. Her musings were interrupted by the arrival of her scone, a golden, flaky creation served warm with a small dish of clotted cream and a dollop of cranberry jam on the side. Grace took her time, savoring each bite, the tartness of the jam perfectly complementing the buttery richness of the scone. She let herself sink deeper into the cozy ambiance of the dining car, feeling as though time had slowed, giving her permission to simply be. The server returned to check on her, their festive holly pin catching the warm glow of the lantern light. "How's everything?" they asked, their tone warm and genuine. "It's wonderful," Grace replied, a contented smile spreading across her face. "Thank you." As the train continued its journey, Grace felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for the delicious food and drink, but for the atmosphere of connection and cheer that surrounded her. It was a moment she would carry with her, a reminder of the beauty in life's simplest pleasures. As Grace savored the last sip of her hot cocoa, she glanced around the dining car, her gaze settling on a woman seated a few tables away. The woman was dressed warmly in a deep green sweater, her scarf draped loosely around her shoulders. Beside her sat a small boy, no older than 7, his cheeks pink from the warmth of the car. He clutched a stuffed reindeer in one hand and a cookie in the other, his wide eyes gazing out the window at the snowy landscape. The woman caught Grace's eye and smiled, a friendly, open expression that invited conversation. Grace returned the smile and hesitated for only a moment before picking up her cocoa and moving to their table. "Mind if I join you?" she asked, her voice soft and inviting. "Not at all," the woman replied, gesturing to the empty seat across from her. "I'm Clara, and this is Henry." "Hi, Henry," Grace said with a warm smile. "I like your reindeer. Does he have a name?" Henry nodded solemnly. "His name is Rudy," he said, holding up the stuffed animal for Grace to see. "Like Rudolph, but shorter." Rudy is a great name, Grace said, her tone conspiratorial. He looks like he's enjoying the train ride. Henry beamed, hugging the reindeer close, before turning his attention back to the window. Clara chuckled softly, her expression filled with a quiet pride. He's been talking about this trip for weeks, she said. We used to take the Christmas train every year when I was a little girl. When I heard it was stopping in Havenport, I knew I had to bring him. Grace's interest piqued. You used to ride this train as a child? She asked. Clara nodded, her gaze turning nostalgic. My parents made it a tradition. We'd bundle up and come to the station, just like tonight. I remember pressing my face to the window, watching the snow-covered trees blur by, just like Henry is doing now. It always felt like stepping into a storybook. Grace smiled, letting Clara's words sink in. It must be special to share that tradition with him, she said, nodding toward Henry, who was now pointing excitedly at a patch of glowing lights in the distance. It is, Clara agreed. There's something about trains that feels timeless, especially during the holidays. They remind me of the magic of childhood, the way the simplest things, like snow or a cup of cocoa, could make you believe anything was possible. Grace leaned back slightly, the soft glow of the dining car's lights catching the thoughtful expression on her face. I think that's why I love Christmas so much, she said. It's one of the few times when we're encouraged to slow down and look for magic in the everyday. Clara nodded, her eyes warm. Exactly. And being here, on this train, with the snow and the lights and the music, it makes you feel like a kid again, doesn't it? It really does, Grace agreed, feeling a deep sense of connection with this stranger who, for this moment, didn't feel like a stranger at all. Clara shifted in her seat, her smile softening as her eyes drifted toward the frosted window. There's one Christmas train ride that always stands out, she began, her voice tinged with nostalgia. I must have been about 10 years old. My parents saved up for weeks just to buy the tickets. We didn't have much, but they wanted to make sure we had a magical holiday. Grace leaned forward, cradling her empty mug, her curiosity piqued. What made it so special? She asked gently. Clara chuckled softly, her breath creating a faint mist in the cooler air near the window. Everything about it felt enchanted. The train was decorated just like this. Garlands, twinkling lights, the works. But there was something else, something intangible. You could feel the excitement in the air, like the train itself was carrying the spirit of Christmas. She paused, her gaze distant, as if she were looking at the memory itself. I remember sitting in the dining car with my parents, sharing a plate of cookies. They weren't anything fancy, just simple sugar cookies dusted with powdered sugar. But to me, they tasted like magic. My dad told me they were made by Santa's elves, and I believed him. The way he said it, with that twinkle in his eye, made it impossible not to. Grace smiled, the warmth of the story settling into her like the soft glow of the dining car's lanterns. It sounds wonderful, she said softly. Sometimes it's those small, simple moments that stay with us the longest. Clara nodded. Exactly. But the part I'll never forget happened when the train stopped in a little town halfway through the journey. It was one of those places where time seemed to stand still. Just a few snow-covered houses, a tiny church, and a town square with a huge Christmas tree in the middle. Henry perked up at this, his small voice breaking in. A tree? Was it bigger than our house? Clara laughed, tousling his hair. Much bigger, sweetheart. It touched the sky. She turned back to Grace. We got off the train, and there was a man dressed as Santa waiting by the tree. He handed out little wooden ornaments to all the children, carved by hand. Mine was a tiny train, painted red and gold. Her smile turned wistful. I still have it, tucked away in a box of Christmas decorations. Every year, when I hang it on the tree, I'm reminded of that ride. The snow, the cookies, the way my dad's laughter echoed in the car. It's one of those memories that feels like it happened just yesterday, even though it's been decades. Grace's heart swelled at the story, her fingers instinctively brushing the edge of the blanket draped over her lap. It sounds like a moment of pure magic, she said. Thank you for sharing it. Clara smiled, her expression soft. It was. And now, being here with Henry, I hope he'll have his own memories like that. Something he can hold on to when he's older. Grace nodded, her voice quiet but warm. I think he will. Moments like these have a way of lasting forever. As the train gently rocked, the snow outside glittering under the faint light of the stars, Grace and Clara sat in companionable silence, the warmth of the memory weaving its way through the cozy atmosphere of the dining car. As Grace returned to her seat, the train shifted direction slightly, and a low whistle echoed through the still night. She pulled the soft blanket closer around her shoulders and gazed out of the frosted window. What she saw made her catch her breath. The train had entered a part of the countryside that looked almost otherworldly. The trees, tall and silent, were coated in layers of shimmering frost that sparkled like diamonds in the glow of the train's lanterns. Snow blanketed the ground so completely it looked untouched, like a canvas waiting for a story to be told. The stars above seemed brighter here, their soft light mingling with the faint hues of green and blue shimmering on the horizon. Perhaps a hint of the northern lights. And Grace felt as though the world had turned into a snow globe. Each detail so perfect it could only have been crafted by magic. The train glided silently through the scene, its presence almost reverent, as though it too understood the beauty of this enchanted place. Her thoughts wandered, and she found herself marveling at the way snow had the power to transform the world. Ordinary trees became sculptures, their branches heavy with sparkling ice. Simple hills turned into gentle waves of white, and the quiet that snow brought was like a blanket, softening every sound, every sharp edge of reality. It was as though winter itself had paused to admire its own artistry. The train passed a frozen lake, its surface smooth and gleaming like polished glass. Grace imagined a time when families might have gathered there to skate, the sound of laughter and skates cutting through the ice filling the crisp air. The thought made her smile, the warmth of the image blending with the cozy glow of the train car. As the train rounded a gentle curve, Grace noticed small flickers of light in the distance. At first, they seemed like fireflies, but as they grew nearer, she realized they were tiny lanterns hung in the trees. Their golden glow illuminated a cluster of snow-covered cabins nestled deep within the woods, smoke curling lazily from their chimneys. It was the kind of scene she had only ever read about in storybooks, and yet, here it was, right outside her window. The conductor's voice carried softly through the car. "This part of the journey is known as the Enchanted Glade," he said, as though reading Grace's thoughts. It's said that on quiet nights like this, if you look closely, you might catch a glimpse of the winter creatures. Grace leaned closer to the glass, her breath fogging the window slightly. For a moment, she thought she saw something move among the trees, a soft shimmer, like moonlight catching on fur, or perhaps a pair of glowing eyes watching the train pass by. She blinked, and the moment was gone, leaving her wondering if she had imagined it. The train continued on, carrying its passengers through the heart of this magical winter wonderland. Grace let her head rest against the back of her seat, her heart full of the quiet awe that came from witnessing something so beautiful, so fleeting, it felt like a dream. The enchanted landscape outside seemed to stretch on forever, its magic wrapping around the train like a gentle embrace, carrying Grace and her fellow travelers deeper into the peace of the season. As the train continued its journey through the enchanted glade, the landscape began to shift subtly. The dense forest of frosted trees gave way to rolling snow-covered hills, their soft, undulating shapes glowing faintly under the starlit sky. Grace gazed out the window, her breath misting the glass, as she let the tranquility of the moment settle over her like a warm blanket. The rhythmic motion of the train, steady and comforting, seemed to echo the heartbeat of the season itself. It was a rhythm of peace, of togetherness, of magic woven into the simplest things: light, snow, warmth, and the quiet moments that asked nothing more than for her to simply be. Her thoughts wandered to the magic of belief, something so integral to the Christmas season. As a child, she had believed wholeheartedly in the impossible. Santa's sleigh flying through the night sky, reindeer with glowing noses, and wishes carried on snowflakes. The enchantment of those beliefs had stayed with her, even as she grew older. Sitting here on this Christmas train, watching the world outside transform into a scene of pure wonder, she felt that same childlike awe stirring in her heart. The train began to slow as it approached a bridge that spanned a frozen river. Grace noticed the conductor moving through the car, his lantern casting a warm, flickering glow on the walls. He stopped beside her seat and gave her a knowing smile. "We're nearing the final stretch of our journey," he said, his voice low and steady, as though he didn't want to disturb the magic of the moment. "If you look out over the river, you might just catch something special." Grace turned back to the window, her curiosity piqued. The bridge was high, offering a sweeping view of the river below. The ice glimmered like silver in the moonlight, its surface smooth and unbroken. For a moment, everything was still, the train seeming to hover in a world suspended between time and space. Then she saw it, a single lantern glowing faintly on the riverbank. Beside it stood a figure wrapped in a long cloak, their head tilted toward the train as if in silent greeting. The scene was fleeting, gone in a blink as the train crossed the bridge, but it left an impression on Grace that she couldn't quite explain. It felt like a reminder of something timeless and unspoken, as though the figure on the riverbank had been waiting just for her to pass by. As the train descended into the open countryside, Havenport's lights began to appear on the horizon. Tiny pinpricks of golden warmth scattered across the snowy landscape. Grace felt a pang of longing, not for the journey to continue, but for the quiet magic of this moment to linger just a little longer. She pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders and closed her eyes, letting the train's gentle rocking lull her into a state of reflection. She thought about the passengers she had met, the snowy vistas she had seen, and the quiet moments that had filled her heart with peace. The Christmas train wasn't just a ride, it was a gift, a reminder of the beauty in slowing down, in connecting with the people and the world around her. When the train finally pulled into Havenport Station, its whistle low and resonant, Grace opened her eyes and smiled. Snow was still falling softly, the town glowing like a candlelit village in a snow globe. As she stepped off the train, the chill of the air and the crunch of snow beneath her boots grounded her back in reality, though the magic of the journey lingered in her heart. Walking through the twinkling streets of Havenport, Grace felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for the train ride, but for the season itself. Christmas was a time to remember the joy of believing, the warmth of connection, and the quiet magic of the world. As the soft glow of Havenport's lights guided her home, she felt the peace of the evening settle deeply within her, like a warm blanket on a snowy night. And now, as you drift off to sleep, may the gentle rhythm of this story carry you into your own dreams, filled with the magic of winter wonderlands and the comfort of cozy connections. Sweet dreams, and may your night be as peaceful as the snow-covered hills of Havenport. Good night.